1970, we sure we did live for front. Knowledge for selfish, for sure we did do the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. Work hard and we shine, commitment, dedication. Neurosurgery, comedy, music, Nollywood. SOTK, Dr. Call, MC Casino. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. Great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben. Hello, viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Uniben Alumni Series. This is a program that showcases the activities of alumni of the University of Benin, men and women that are doing great things in Nigeria and beyond. On today's episode, I have the Director of Voltage Academy, one-time ELECO Secretary General, that's the Electoral Commission Secretary General, the INEC of Uniben. Was one time the Secretary General of that commission. He is comrade. He used to be a comrade. I don't know if he's still a comrade, but I think he's still a comrade. It's Comrade Daniel Omola Nwabuma. Thank you very much, brother, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, sir. Honorable Kaka. I believe you are still an honorable.
Good to have you.
I still remain the comrade. Actually, I'm still a comrade. It's a pleasure to be in this program. I count it a rare privilege to also contribute our quota to the young generation through this platform.
Very important. Thank you very much. Let's have a very foundation. You got into the University of Benin to study medical biochemistry. It has become like a cliche for us on this program, especially for those that did not study the medicine, the accounting, the law. Yeah, for some of us, they ask us too that study political science, that was it law that was our first choice. And Uniben took us to political science. So for you, what was your first choice? Was it medicine and surgery?
Okay.
Yes.
Ordinarily, let me go from the cradle. I rounded up my secondary school education as at 2007.
Yeah.
2007, 2008. And I was privileged to be admitted into the University of Benin as at 2012. So I had written JAMB for 5 years, trying to secure admission into medicine and surgery, because at that point, my father was already telling a lot of persons out there that I was a medical doctor in practice. So that desire to, delve into the School of Medicine was so much in me. And for every year I wrote JAMB, I got admission into Uniben, but I didn't accept it because I actually wanted to study medicine.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when it got to the 5th year and I realized that some of my mates were already graduating the same university I was anticipating to join, I had to accept what was given that year, and that was medical biochemistry.
Okay. And when you got into medical biochemistry, how was it for you? Was it something you accepted right from day one, or you still had your first love of medicine was still ringing a bell in your head and said, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be here"? Or did you just immediately put in the work and said, "Oh, this is my home for now. I have to do the work here"?
Okay, well, for me, right from time, I have always had this, this empathy, this care, this nature that wants me to, impart people, or show or render support to people. And I felt right from my secondary school days that I would have loved to be a medical doctor, because I just love to see people get well, people get, relief of whatever stress or pain that they go through. And that was my original passion for medicine. But when I found myself in medical biochemistry, I was still naive. I was in 100 level. I could remember back then that Comrade Osifo was the president as at that time. And I remember he came to address us at the auditorium and told us, he made a statement, if I could remember vividly, that whatever you find yourself studying, take advantage of it and make the best out of it. And I took that word seriously because I came into the University of Benin angry that I was going to study medical biochemistry. But when I heard those words, I had to start working, within the faculty, because medical biochemistry was not known as at then. It was just a regular course. We didn't even have an association. That's how bad it was. So when we came in from the 100 level, we started, trying to put structures on ground to make that department much more formidable. And I assisted some of my senior colleagues then to ensure we had an association, which is still functional to date. And by the special grace of God, by the time I was getting to my 300 level final year, I began to ask myself a lot of questions that when you are done graduating from medical biochemistry, what next? What's the next thing? Yeah. But fortunately enough, I was able to connect with some of my friends as at that time who were much more passionate about public health, and they were traveling around the world, affecting lives in their own little capacity. And that was how I was able to take advantage of that and, integrate my knowledge in medical biochemistry into that field of endeavor. And it was really a huge success for me. It actually opened a lot of doors for me.
Okay. We are quite aware of your political trajectory in the university, and I want to ask, at what point did you decide to get into student politics, student leadership? Is this something you came into the campus with? Is it something that, you also mentioned that you helped your senior colleagues in shaping the association you people have today? Was that a motivating factor for you to get into student leadership?
Yes, I would say my coming into student politics was structured around some of my predecessors, or those I could call my senior colleague at that time. I saw how they simplified leadership. I've always known that I was born to be a leader. I've always known that I had that leadership trait and capacity. And that's why even in my current field of endeavor, I also showcase what I do. But when I got into school, I saw the likes of, his name is Dubi, who I don't have his full name. He used to be the president of BAMSAS at that time. Very eloquent, and his show of excellence in the field of politics was extraordinary. And for me, I fell in love with it. I also had the likes of Daniel Didi, that was also part of the system in BAMSA. And I saw the way they were passionate about politics. And so that alone actually gingered me from my year one. I broke a lot of rules, like protocols. Let me use the word protocols while I was in school. I became the first assistant secretary general of my faculty at 100 level, a position that was not contested at 100 level. And from there, I became secretary general of my faculty, that's the BAMSA. And that was where I had the zeal to contest for the electoral position at the level of the student union government. So in all of this, I would say University of Benin actually gave me an environment where I met people who had learned also from credible persons, and they were able to, showcase these leadership qualities that also endeared us into joining the political space. And that alone actually shaped my life for good. I won't lie to you. That political environment that I took part in University of Benin, actually, I asked myself sometimes, because I used to be a very naive young man. I don't like to associate with the crowd. I don't like to speak with the crowd. I don't like to, partake in activities that has to do with a lot of persons. But when I came to University of Benin, those barriers were broken, and for me, it was wonderful. It was an experience. It's just sometimes I still sit back to ask myself, thank God for being a part of the University of Benin system, because that alone actually took my life from one level of uncertainty to a level of certainty. Yeah.
Great to hear that. I want to talk about your emergence as the Secretary General of the Electoral Commission. That is one election that is not it's not quite predictable.
It's not, and it's still one of a kind.
Yes, your own in particular, because we all know when it comes to the main election for the executive position, either you are popular or you have a particular kind of charisma that can help you get votes from students. But this time around, you're not getting votes from students directly. You are getting from their representatives, from their faculty representatives. There's a lot of lobbying, a lot of alignment and realignment, as we say. So how were you able to emerge? How were you able to convince your contemporaries, those members, those representatives on that commission, that you were good enough to lead them?
First of all, it was a fierce competition, honestly. And if you take a look at all the parliamentarians now, all the commissioners from the various, faculties, I would tell you I was the least experienced, honestly. If I should be honest at this point, I was the least experienced. I was the least person who had even the financial capacity to run an alignment. Because if we go back then, I remember the likes of Onochi Obodo contesting against me. He was in the School of Medicine, where my predecessor, Dr. Ezebo Malakai, finished from. And he had so much charisma. He had so much, would I use the word? He was well known, consequent of the name Onochi Obodo. So he was well known. And we also had another guy from dentistry who was well popular. We had a lot of them from law, from agriculture. And we had almost about 10 out of 12, commissioners who were contesting for that position. Yes, so it was a fierce competition. But somehow along the line, thanks to Daniel Didi, he was very instrumental in the course of that election. I can't forget. He played a pivotal role, and how we managed to appeal to the conscience of other commissioners and parliamentarians. I remember back then, the Right Honorable Ajimo Great-Impeg was the speaker. And there was a lot of controversy around that conversation, that we had a speaker already at the level of the Student Union Parliament, and it would be somehow unfair for us to have an electoral secretary general from that same faculty. But just at the brink of the election, a lot changed, and just right there, I think Dr. Malaka also played the pivotal role as well. I walked into the hall with no hopes that I will have persons contesting against me. But when I got there, I was surprised. Every comrade who was a commissioner that wanted to be a part of that system all stepped down at the level of the parliament and said that I was the one credible enough, to lead the Student Union Government Electoral Commission. And not just that, it became an historic moment, because that was the first time we were having an electoral commissioner coming in to the office of the Electoral Secretary General unopposed. I had no contestant.
A lot of work must have gone in.
So what went in, if I should summarize, was sincerity. I was sincere with my manifesto. I was loyal to those who I felt were instrumental to the process. Until date, I'm still loyal. If that's one thing about me, if there's one thing the university taught me, was loyalty. I saw the part where loyalty gives you opportunity, because I was a nobody in the university. There were persons who had that capacity to become that person, but at the end of the day, my loyalty paid off. I remember vividly where parliamentarians were even bought pack of foods at Blue Meadows, the then Blue Meadows. And I met that occasion, and I was like, wow, what's going on here? I don't have the money for this. And he said, well, let's see how it goes, my brother. Since you don't have money, we wish you the best. But at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, when I walked into that place and the speaker asked, is there any other nomination? And they said no other nomination, and the hands were on the desk, you know, and said he's carried.
How did you feel at that moment?
I felt so much joy. You won't believe that my father traveled from far that particular day to come into school to celebrate with me, because it was something we never expected. I came into the university just to read my books. But as time progressed, a lot of things changed, you know. The whole political space. I remember walking into the Senate chambers, you know, to read my speech before the Vice Chancellor then, Professor Friday I was fidgeting because I never expected myself coming to that platform to speak directly to the Vice Chancellor. So it was a rare opportunity for me. And trust me, that moment actually changed the course of my life. The people I met, I was privileged through that office to meet with the former Senate President, as at then, David Mark. I was privileged to meet with the governor of Edo State as at then. I met with a lot of persons. And I still have cordial relationship with some of these elites to date. And if not for Uniben giving me that platform, I don't think I would have been amongst, you know, I still have a friend of mine who tells me that I wish I was in student union politics. I just went to school and I read. He graduated with the first class, but today he's in the field of education, though. But you know that
relationship,
space, there's this thing it gives to us. It gives us street sense. I call it street sense.
Yeah.
So and if you don't have that intellectual knowledge, you just find yourself in a space where you are doing well in your craft, but you are not expanding the frontiers of your knowledge because of your limitation. So Uniben actually gave us that political environment where we expanded on the knowledge. We were able to test ourselves. Sometimes we ask ourselves, we don't even have one naira in our account, but we are walking down to government house to meet with people. We are walking down to a politician house to say, sir, it's a pleasure, we are meeting with you, and all of that. And we didn't have one naira in our pocket, but we're confident, we're assertive, you know, that for me was what Uniben gave to us. And for me, I felt really, indeed, we learned in character and in learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your time as Secretary General of ELECO. As umpire anywhere in the world, any democracy in the world it's not an easy task. Yeah. Many elections that bring in leaders and all. Then particularly for our university, as Secretary General, you had a superior, the Dean of Students, who was the chairman, but he was not elected. You were the student representative, you were the eye of the students. And most times there's always this conflict that we hear and we see between the policies of the school management and what the student wants. So for you, what was the most challenging time as ELECO Secretary General? Were there time that you had issues agreeing on a particular decision with the Dean of Students? Because most times we hear, those of us from outside, we hear that the ELECO have the student electoral representatives, they decided on something and the Dean is not going in that same direction. Well, was there any case like that for you?
Yes, I think there were cases. Some I can remember vividly. But in all, I like I said, I wouldn't want to. My office was an elective office, but his office was a ceremonial one. But then again, he also had that responsibility to lead over us, you know. And for me, I acknowledged his office and also tabled my own observations, suggestions, as also disagreements with respect. In the case of, I think that year we had a lot of contestants for the office of president. We had about 16 contestants for the office of president. Yes, it was one of the most contested elections ever as at that time. We had about 16 contestants, and a lot of them among those contestants were very popular. You know, some of them were celebrities, you know, within the educational space and all of that. And if there was one disagreement I had with the then Dean of Students, Professor Sagede, was the aspect of, students going before, the DSS to go through screening,
Security
because
clearance,
I,
yeah.
I, I, I kind of felt like the DSS as a security agency was too ambiguous for students of the
Students
University of Benin
of
who were still
present
trying to
yourself.
find their feet in the academic space. So for me, it was something I felt was not just, except you were trying to bring politics into a democratic system. For me, it was all political. So I disagreed with
You
my dean
thought
of
our
students.
internal security should be able to
Yes,
manage
was enough. Yes, was enough. It was enough. And
mm,
even though there were still, for us, political, you know,
interest.
observation in the system, a lot of persons had this propaganda that, the security were a bit tribalistic. They were a
Mm,
bit tribal. There was this tribal sentiment that has to do with, choosing those who intend to lead the
yeah,
student union and all of that. But I felt uh, one thing that was relevant was a system that is fair, a system that judges candidates on a fair ground.
yeah,
And that was how we introduced, that was the system that actually introduced, using the CRPU in conjunction with the CRPU to vet students' results,
okay,
to ensure that those who are leading us are not just, mounted, but they are also academically sound. And that was where we introduced that system, and that was the system that actually reduced the number of candidates from about 16 to 2,
mm,
because we then discovered that a lot of these guys were popular, a lot of these guys were sound, but the academic records were not showing that. And because the constitution already gave us a blueprint of what a leader who should lead a student union executive should have academic wise, they didn't fall through. They weren't successful in that regard. And that was
yeah,
how we're able to minimize, you know, the 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 numbers from the 16 to
16.
about, we had about 5. Yes, we had about 5 that went through the security screening. But
Okay,
from the academic record itself, we had just 5 persons
okay,
out of 16. So 11 were not even qualified academically to contest. Well,
okay,
how did we do this? We did this with, with respect, while also giving our own observation
mm,
without undermining the office of the dean of students. Because by all standard, he is first a professor,
mm,
and he's also the head of of the union, even if it is ceremonial.
yeah,
The decision to announce the result is not in my power, but in his power. And we didn't make it so. The constitution made it so. And
yeah,
so we must also obey the constitution. And that is where that fairness comes from. So
yeah,
even though we had some of my commissioners felt like, no, 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 we should do this. We are commissioners. First of all, our stay on campus was paid not by me, but by the institution.
mm,
So if we go against the management in certain things that are binded by the constitution, we're already saying that our stay on campus should be kept.
mm,
And because of all of this, we had to also, play the politics or the polity in a way that respects the system. Because there is a system, and that system has to be respected.
mm,
If the system gave us the power to do certain things or make certain decisions, we would have done that. But it didn't give us that power to do so. And even if we wanted to change things, we won't change it because it's not in our power to do so. We
mm.
have the student
Effectively,
union parliament,
parliament, yeah,
who can make changes to that constitution, and that was what happened. And
okay,
it was a successful one. The manifesto, the debate was also successful as well.
okay.
I think we
Why?
had the likes of Edo Pikin then was the anchor of the debate as at that
No.
time. MC Edo
Okay.
Pikin, yes.
Okay, that's good
Yeah.
to hear. While answering some of the questions, the previous question, you've talked about some of the things the institution taught you. I just want you to throw more light on that. What are the key values or skills that Uniben instilled in you, and some of these skills that you use today in your present endeavor?
All right. First, if there is anything I learned critically from the University of Benin, That was discipline. Honestly, I learned discipline. I learned respect. I learned loyalty. Uniben is that institution where up to date, I still see my senior colleagues and I accord them the respect that they deserve,
Yeah.
just as I accorded to them back then in the university.
Yeah.
Those who know me very well can attest to this fact. And that is because I grew up in Ube quarters. I grew up in a very rough environment, in Edo State, in an environment where you can talk to anybody anyhow, you can do anything you like. But then when I came to University of Benin, I came in refined. I was refined, the way I talk, the way I meet up with people, the way I engage people, it all went different, And then again, my love for education increased. And that was where, if they had told me in life that I would be an educator, I wouldn't believe that. I would tell the person, you don't know what you're saying. But then it even gave me that confidence, and prior to that, I happened to travel to some African countries due to my advocacy opportunities, working with the International Youth Alliance for Family Planning. As at then, I was able to travel to some African countries. I was able to reach out to international, organizations and all of that. I was able to even sit in a closed-door meeting with the former Minister of Health, Honorable Sagi Hanire, as at then. And these opportunities, even when I was done speaking, he was proud of me. And he asked me, what institution did you finish from? I said, the University of Benin. And if not for that, that culture to speak, I wasn't this eloquent. I wasn't this good speaking. So the University of Benin gave me that four-wall environment where my discipline came to fruition, my knowledge, my interest in education was there. And by the way, I graduated very well from medical biochemistry. It's not easy to get the 2-1 from such a department. So with all the political, stuffs and all of that, I was able to do well. And if there's one thing I really learned was discipline, character, and I think I learned the ability to navigate opportunities. That's one thing I actually learned from the University of Benin: discipline, character, and the ability to navigate opportunities.
Okay. Lastly, you prepare young adults and teenagers to go into university. You prepare them academically to go into tertiary institutions, not just universities. And these are quite people of the Gen Z era. And we all know there are a lot of distractions for them. They have their phone, they have social media, they have a lot of things that, if not used properly, works against them. So are you able to manage all these distractions and prepare them to achieve academic successes?
Now, the first thing, the business of education, most especially when dealing with young adults, is not something that is easy. Yeah. It's not an easy route. I'll tell you for a fact. And we are dealing with a generation that is different from us. Definitely. A generation where every tool they have is within the space of the social media. And so one thing we do that has worked over time in this sphere of my business is that we'll first of all make them friends. That's what we do. One way to correct them is to bring them close and then make them understand that this tool that they have is a tool that can help them navigate. And this is the reason why I introduced the digital finance learning into my own educational process. So why they aspire to get into the university, those we feel that get distracted in the course of using their phones and all of that, we begin to push their mindsets, their enthusiasm towards something that can be of financial freedom to them in the future. Begin to introduce them to certain skill sets. Like I have a routine break time where I teach my students things that have to do with web development, app development, things that also have to do with the Forex market. And so I don't just say to them, I show them example. I tell them, look I just made this from Forex. You can also make this if you are ready to be a part of it. And I can tell you, Currently in my class, I have quite a number of students, most especially the girls, because I even prioritize the girl child. Because, you know, if we look at the society today, most of the young adults that are actually taking advantage of are the girl child. The girl child is actually taken advantage of. And why are they being taken advantage of? It's because some of them have not come to that realization that, you know, they have the capacity to achieve certain things without putting their body out there. You know, I often tell my girl students in class that a girl child is equivalent to 3 boys. I'm really sorry saying this, but this is what I often tell them to encourage them. I tell them, I said, if I'm privileged to give birth to a first child, I will give birth to a girl child first, because a girl child is what 3 boys. And they'll tell me, why, sir? Why do you say this? I said, because even the United Nations have come to agreement that if you empower a woman, you empower a nation.
Yeah.
And yes, if you empower a woman, you empower a nation. And so we begin to decongest their mind from what we call social frivolities and begin to empower their mind with certain things that can help them, you know, become independent while they also pursue their education. So for me, I am much more friends with my students, you know, and I play that fatherly role in friendship. You know, this generation is not the generation you flog. You flog them, you lose them. So you call them, you let them understand that this is wrong, and then you tell them this is how you do it, and this is how you become better. You speak to their conscience. They are conscience-driven young adults, actually. So you make them understand that the road path they are going, look at what it looks like. Sometimes I tell them, as have you seen an old man at 80, 70, hopeless, not doing, you know, what? There's some storytelling. You know, storytelling is very important. I bring some parts of storytelling to help them have this consciousness of the fact that if they don't take action now, it will be too late in the future. And it works perfectly for me. It works perfectly. And that's how I've been able to impact a lot of them. And some of them are doing well. I even have a student already who is a graduate of law. I have a student who is a medical doctor already. And this alone gives me joy to see that a lot of them are doing well. I even have some of them who are already in the tech world overseas doing very well. So these things are things that actually propel us to continue to impact them and also ensure that the next generation become much more proud and build society better.
Those will definitely be fulfilling for you, seeing them doing exploits.
Truly.
Yeah. Thank you very much, comrades. Daniel Omola Nwabuma. It has been wonderful speaking with you. This is the time we're able to accommodate for this. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I've been speaking with the director of Voltage Academy and the former ELECO Secretary General, that's the Electoral Commission of the University of Benin Students' Union Government. Continue to subscribe to our channel. We'll bring you more exclusive interviews of Uniben alumni. Bye.
1970, we sure we did the forefront. Knowledge for selfish, for sure we did the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law.